We're all set, gentlemen. Here we go. Rick Garcia here, G12 Communications, Everything Teams Phone Live, Episode 8. We've got some special guests to announce. I'm very excited about that. But everyone, welcome to the show, and we're going to talk about Teams all hour long. I was going to call it the Power Hour, the Teams Power Hour, but we'll skip the funnies like that. So, Brandon, who do we have on the show today?
We've got Adam Ball joining us from my same city, Denver, Colorado, or at least the Denver area. I don't know specifically where you're from, but so I can take pride in that while Garcia is sitting in the state of Washington.
Adam, welcome. We do like to tell everyone good morning, good afternoon.
Good evening.
Exactly.
Good evening. We're broadcasting live worldwide. Isn't that how cool is that? With a click of a button, we're broadcasting worldwide.
Got to find out which of our Australian friends are up at 4 a.m. to watch.
I would think all of them. They should totally be tuning into this show. It's super exciting.
It's 4 a.m. on a Saturday.
There we go. Adam, I know you've got a long history in Microsoft Teams. We were just covering that in the green room, we'll call it, just covering your history here. We've got a lot of folks that join, Adam, that are enterprise organizations, that are Microsoft partners, that are Microsoft employees. Lots of different people tune in to listen to Everything Teams Phone to help learn a little bit more about what's happening in this space. And so why don't you tell us a little about what you've got going on, what you do at Cloud Revolution, and then we'll kick things off. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm the CTO and co-founder here at Cloud Revolution. You'd think I'd have this down pat by now for how many times I have to say stuff like this, but introductions to customers, etc. But day in and day out, we help customers with Microsoft Teams, predominantly in the voice space. Everything from helping them migrate from legacy systems. When I say legacy systems, sometimes it might be really old, Meridian type stuff, like hanging on a wall that's been there since 1982, all the way to a more modern system that may have been put in the last 5, 10, 15 years. Then we go from that back-end config and migration all the way down to helping people envision what it could be for contact center, for meeting room spaces, etc., all along the line. So that's the day job that I do every day, pretty much every day. And then because I'm a glutton for punishment, I also help out. I'm co-founder of the Comms vNext conference that's going on, and that's coming up here in Denver on April 25th and 26th. Hopefully, folks will be able to join up for that, because it's really the only Teams-focused conference like this in North America. I shouldn't say North America, at least in the US. So from that standpoint, so great slide. Lucky 2023 is the pricing code for today. Today only for St. Patrick's Day pricing, and you can get 75% off your ticket today with that. So Lucky 2023. So we'll give that out, and it should be a great time. Great sponsors. If you're interested in Teams or you're thinking about it, you're going to have folks like Landis, Neat, Poly, LG, and Logi. Sorry, going through the platinum sponsors really quickly in my head, so apologies for doing some shilling here on you, Rick. But there's some great folks happening at Comms vNext this year.
That's exciting. That's such a great lineup of vendors to go learn from, see what's available in the Microsoft Teams ecospace, because there is so much in transition. Let's step back for just a second. When you talked about replacing Meridians and things like that, are you ever surprised about how organizations still have old stuff hanging on the wall, like literally old phone systems? You've been in the space for 20 some odd years, right? And you think about how advanced, we see all the advanced stuff. So we're probably 10 years ahead of people that are still out there, organizations. I mean, we see it every day too. Isn't that crazy?
Oh yeah, especially certain verticals. Manufacturing, that's a great vertical where you're going to find stuff hanging on the wall that hasn't been touched. It still has an entire layer of dust from the late 80s, early 90s on it. If you kind of dig down far enough in the layers, and Yeah, it's amazing to me what's still out there, what's still working. First off, I mean, it's kind of like, you think back to the 60s and of the space program and how they built some of that stuff. And it's a testament to some of those engineers who built those things to truly run for decades. So
Yeah, and it's still cracking along, right?
still going.
It's still going.
Basic
the-
connectivity.
Yeah, the scary thing is there's fewer and fewer people that know how to go trace those wires and even know what a punch down block is and what the tool is that you use to do all that work with. So what do they
So-
say? If it's not broke, don't touch it.
Oh,
Exactly. So funny story, just legitimately funny story here really quickly, talking about punch down blocks. I had a guy, one of our teammates had to troubleshoot a fax issue remotely from like 1,500 miles away through pictures on a punch down block and tell them which wires to pull. So like
Oh.
that's within the last month that we've had that happen.
Crazy.
So
it is surprising considering all the and how easy organizations have made adopting advanced phone systems, right? It does surprise me, but because the UCAS providers out there, obviously this past decade, right? It's been, the UCAS organizations have been really been kind of pushing this, the voice, the IP voice stuff. But now, obviously, Teams has been doing it the entire time. But now with Teams, it just becomes really, really simple.
yeah,
It's,
I'll say straightforward. Sometimes simple takes it too far and people hear it as easy, and while it can be, I think it's really, really straightforward if you approach it that way.
That's a better way to address it, because there's some complexity. The layers beyond Microsoft become complex, and we live it every single day. So we look at this and we go, it's easy, right?
Exactly.
But the complexities, if you're an organization out there trying to figure out what's the next step for you, if you need to assess what you've got and can this address your needs, right? Then you look at it and go, there's so many different moving parts to it. And I guess it's because I think about it going, well, you just have to come and talk to a professional. You just have to come and talk to an Adam Ball. You just have to come and talk to a G12, and then we can kind of lay out the easy for you, right? Or lay out the straightforward for you, because in our minds, we do this stuff every single day, right?
Yeah, we know how to make the path straighter. Like that's how I would always, like I said, when you start to tell people it gets easy, they start to have missed expectations a lot of times, because they go, oh, well, why isn't it done? And it's like, well, no, we still have to go through the process. We still have to do all the tasks. But instead of you going left and right and playing like, like I play golf, from that standpoint, we can get it, we can straighten that path out, and it does ultimately make it a quicker, faster deployment by doing that. And that's really what people need and want.
Put some bumper rails up, right?
Exactly.
Keep you rolling down the alley properly. Yep, very good, very good. Well, I put this up again. We were live from London last week, and we had an amazing conversation with Tom Arbino. And really quick, I didn't even think about it, but I should have dropped a little slide in here for Empowering Cloud. If you're an organization that is interested in learning more about Microsoft Teams Phone, Empowering Cloud has this group of amazing experts that contribute video content to help everyone learn, what's out and available in Microsoft Teams Phone, help you as an organization, help your team as from a training perspective. There's so much good content at empowering.cloud. I invite everyone that's watching to go visit that. We'll put a link up to Empowering Cloud here shortly in just a second. But I wanted to put this up again. We went over this in London just a little bit, and this is this Forrester total economic impact document. Have you had a chance to look at this, Adam?
I have. Yeah, it's actually really interesting.
Wow. When you look at this, and we've got the enterprise document up first. There's, the enterprise is consistently being trained to pay for service on a per user model. For those of us that come from, the legacy PBX world and legacy telco world, you look at this and go, how does this play out? But you look at the total cost of ownership numbers that we've got here, and then if you look under the hood and see what numbers they applied to the calculation, you go, wow, it's even cheaper than that, quite frankly. I mean, they were kind of guessing high here, or doing some research high. And so it's pretty interesting how organizations can drive value and savings into this enterprise is extremely large. The one that we're looking at here, when we see an enterprise here, I forgot how many thousands of users.
It was
This one was 10,000 users. So this one was
Yeah.
10,000 users, you know, and it's astonishing.
You know, it is, but it isn't for me. I'll just be honest. I've actually we had a customer who they did a projection over 5 years, and they had done a high water mark and a low water mark, and the high water mark was 5 million in savings over 5 years from their previous platform, and the low water mark was like 3. I mean, even if you're at your low water mark over
Right.
5 years, to have a $3 million savings over 5 years, I mean, it's amazing what people can have with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not shocked at all. And the part to me that out of all of this that stood out was the payback period.
Yeah.
I mean, less than 6 months. I mean, some of these places are, you know, when they start talking about these phone systems, payback periods were always in the years.
Right.
And to be sub half a year, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is. We saw a savings of this was for a local government agency, like 90% from a savings perspective of, you know, over their previous platform and services. And you know, you scratch your head and you go, maybe I didn't charge enough. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah,
There's definitely that thought that's gone through somebody's mind, I'm sure, Rick.
Yeah, in that case, so you've got, you know, they've got such good, I'll call it buying power with Microsoft. When you're, you know, nonprofit government, you get that reduced rate with Microsoft, and obviously even these stats are drastically different for those organizations because they may not get that kind of buying power from a Cisco or an Avaya, depending on how they negotiated that.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're going, but I'm not a 10,000 user organization. Well, don't worry. We've got the small biz right here too, right? Here, what does a small business one look like? Total cost of ownership, 82% savings. That's a return of 146%. And again, the numbers, the calculation was significantly higher than what I think you actually would pay. And particularly those what you're talking about, Brandon, nonprofits and academic institutions. I mean, the leeway or the discounting that Microsoft offers you for, you know, for the licensing that includes the phone system is great. Like you guys should be first in line to go, how can you help me transition off my legacy phone system, whatever it may be? It's nearly guaranteed you're going to save a significant, you know, amount of money. And again, I'm not going to say you're going to save money. You likely will. I mean, obviously the studies show that you will. Yeah. Again, my friend Tom basically said, you know, you take these things sometimes with a grain of salt because, you know, who commissioned this report? And it's Microsoft that commissioned the report. Great. But if you look at the breakdown, I think you'll find that there's some significant savings. It comes from 3 different categories. I think, Brandon, you remember the categories? There's the one of the categories was the actual telco. So you know, apples to apples telco cost, the telco management cost, right? So again, apples to apples and what it takes to manage the platform. And then the third, go ahead.
Yeah, that was broken down between the infrastructure cost, right? Licensing, whatever, your CapEx, if you will, and then your head count to support that, right? Your, you know, the number of resources and the hours that it takes. And then I think the report went into, you know, they were averaging that cost on, I think it was like $45 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the last one was productivity. Yeah. I was like, okay, what's gained in productivity? And for those of you that don't use Teams today and you're asking, what kind of productivity am I really going to experience? I mean, Adam, what's your response to something like that? Because
I mean, it's funny because you popped this up and I was like, oh, like as we were talking through it with those other 2 examples, I'm like, number 1 is right here. Like, I mean, this is the piece to me that, like, especially when you talk about small business, so many small businesses, and we've experienced it, had never had a plan for true business continuity for their phone systems, and phone systems are the lifeblood of organizations. Like, you need that for most organizations. You need that main line that people can call into, and now all of a sudden you've got redundancy. You know, that the fact that you don't have a backhoe event taking you out for days, that to me that was a bigger deal, Rick. I'll just be honest, like the business continuity. but then you flip over from that, and it kind of ties to it. But that ability for workers to just work wherever they're at and not have to be tied to the physical handset at the desk, at the physical desk, has been tremendous. That ability to say, I'm working from home, I'm working from the cafe, I'm working from the office, wherever it might be. And that truly leads into part two, which is that happier employees, which then leads to happier customers, because it all translates. I mean, employees set the tone for your customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we
they
actually
really
had
do.
a client just the other day. It's pretty interesting that you can have consumers of the Teams phone system, and they don't even necessarily realize the flexibility that brings in and of itself without any extra add-ons or anything. So the example this week was, customer wants to be mobile but still wants to be a part of the call queue, not realizing that you just open the app on your phone, and you're, as long as you've got the corporate policy in place to allow that mobile, you can go and keep working on the go.
Yep.
Really flexible.
Some of the stuff that I look at these three things here: the happier employees, obviously, because I think about the IT team that typically manages an organization. Let's just say if they're a decent sized organization, the IT team has a flat, platform that they can manage across multiple sites, across multiple regions, right? It doesn't matter where an employee is at. Now, obviously, we've seen the pandemic era, sort of everyone at home, and now people start to, come back into the office, but that work environment has changed forever. And that flexibility is needed in nearly every scenario. You could go to a facilities heavy organization like a hospital, right? And guaranteed they have hundreds of workers still working remote, thousands of workers at their facility, but still hundreds of workers, remote, and giving the flexibility to them to work the way they work in the office, out of a single interface is pretty amazing. And then the happier customer piece, I'll just say this: the platform features that are now included really pave the way for happier customers, for an improved customer experience, no matter what your organization is. And it could be as simple as the, voice activated, auto attendance, the voice recognition. It could be as simple as, hey, the text to speech stuff that we see, because now they've got my information logged pretty easily because I've got every call transcribed that I call into this organization. They know what I'm talking about. That could be potentially logged into a CRM. They know what I'm, who I am. They know what I'm calling for. There's so much from a customer experience perspective that organizations don't calculate. And that's what this is basically saying right here: unquantified benefits that were not calculated in those savings, in that total cost of ownership, right? In that payback. These weren't even calculated, and these are so significant still.
The other piece that I would add, maybe a number 4 here, that maybe isn't totally recognized, and I think it obviously is also dependent on corporate policy. But for me, one of the things that brings a lot of efficiency and excitement to the kind of that Teams phone and Teams collaboration ecosystem is the synergy that it provides cross organization. So, my ability to immediately reach out to a vendor, or even customers immediately being able to reach out to me, and it's not even necessarily that they're calling me on the phone. It's they can reach into my organization and they can get a hold of us. And it can escalate to a phone call, or it can start with a phone call and escalate to a Teams meeting. But huge benefits there too, right? One app to kind of open the door and create the avenues for customers, vendors, whoever to reach into organizations.
Well, it's not just us, right? We're not the only evangelists out there, right? It's for good reason that we're excited as professionals in this field, in this ecosystem, right? We're really excited. It's everyone that that we encounter that is looking to make an impact in their organization. Look at these numbers here that Microsoft has published: 280 million active users in the Teams environment, daily active users in the platform. 5 million PSTN subscribers were added last year. over the course of 12 months. I think the total now is somewhere around 15 or 16 million active PSTN subscribers for Teams Phone, which is nearly eclipsing all of the UCAS or decades of, a decade or two of UCAS deployments, right? And now they've, I'll call it a leapfrog for, I should find a better way to explain that, but they've leapt over that and now are at the forefront of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? And you look at that, and it's pretty impressive the amount of market share they've been able to pull in, and it's rightfully so. It's an amazing platform.
Absolutely,
guys.
No, I mean, I when you start looking at the numbers, it's crazy to me. Like I said, we were talking beforehand, and looking back at where it's been over the last 15 years, and to see where it's at today, it's absolutely insane to me, and I'm super excited about where it's come from, but more importantly, where it's going.
We're gonna pop into this topic of Azure Communication Services and Power Automate, because we're gonna give you a glimpse, or we'll talk about one of the things that we saw while we were in London with an organization called Luware. They're an all Teams contact center solution, and it is pretty darn amazing. But let me before we do that, before we start talking about that, I just want to throw this out. I didn't have time to get a slide together for this, but did any of you watch the Copilot announcement yesterday? Did you see the Copilot
I saw the announcement. I didn't get to watch it. I was unfortunately on a customer call.
Yeah, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw the demos. Briefly watched the demos, and basically it's like an assistant in your pocket. I mean, but it's the assistant that understands everything that's in your platform. So that's in your business, right? If you've got spreadsheets and PowerPoints and your email and your calendars, and you've got questions, I think you're going to have to. There should be a new course in colleges now, and it should be how to prompt Copilot and how to prompt. I mean, it's obviously Chat GPT powering this thing, right? But how to, what do the prompts need to be to get the output that I'm looking for? But I heard Satya say, symbiosis between man and machine, right? This is really it. And you think about the business productivity that's going to come out of every full-time employee or every knowledge worker, let's just say, right? The potential efficiencies that could come out of a single knowledge worker. I think I posted something this morning. I said, basically an individual is now 10x, right? It's like you have 10x the output of an individual, which for business is time, is money, is profit, is, it's pretty significant. So it's pretty exciting to see what that looks like, and then to see that rolled out at some point. We've yet to see that, but I think it's pretty exciting. But what is rolled out, and what is pretty cool to see right now, is Azure Communication Services and Power Automate. Brandon, do you have a good way to explain to the audience? And if you're a business out there and you're like, oh boy, this is way over my head, hold on, we're going to bring it down to what this means for a business, because that's what really matters, right? It's like, how are you impacted as an organization, or how can this have an impact on you as an organization? And we'll give you a couple of examples. Brandon, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to get really technical, so you'll have to like pull the reins back.
I'll decipher.
If I get too deep.
That for the business folks out there, because that's where I'll be.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look across kind of the business ecosystem, regardless of whether you're financial, telemedicine, retail, whatever you are, the ability to automate your workflow is kind of where this Power Automate comes in, where you can begin to make business process logic decisions based on, maybe it's a Teams phone call coming inbound, and it comes into your phone system, and you want to make business related decisions based on who's calling, right? Maybe you want that call to get diverted out, at least the metadata diverted out, to look up who's calling, maybe why they're calling, to better facilitate the direction that call gets routed. So think about, you've got these complex, I always like to pick on, and maybe I shouldn't use the name, but AT&T, you call their support line or their 800 number, and you can press DTMF digits till you're blue in the face, and you just end up back at the beginning. Something that I see this doing is it potentially eliminates the need for even the interaction to an IVR, right? it can make process decisions based on, you know, the metadata already coming in from the caller. That's just a high level example of the power that this platform can do for you.
Well, here I'm going to take a stab at making it easier. Okay, so here you can take the power of Teams. I know you're talking Power Automate, and I'm going to take the. I mean, I'm going to say something about Azure Communication Services. Okay, because people are going, "What is that?" I mean, it's like maybe I've heard of Azure, maybe I haven't heard of Azure. But if you can imagine Teams now, if you're out there that you're using Teams today, you know you can smash the thumbs up button. If you're using Teams, great in your organization today, awesome. You know how Teams works, right? You've got your video, you've got your chat, you've got some phone calls potentially if you're using Teams phone. If you're not, that's what we're here for. But can you imagine exposing the power of chat and video and calling externally to your customers? Now, not saying let me just pop your Teams square out there, right? Your Teams interface. Let's just put it externally on the website. No, what we're talking about is Teams ACS is the building blocks for the LAN traversal, for the the chat, for the video communications to be exposed to you in whatever format anyone can dream up. Okay. And this is what was so impressive. And Brandon, you're talking about the Power Automate, kind of making decisions ahead of time and linking the different tools to the different sort of Microsoft Teams kind of, or external to Microsoft Teams. But hang on, let me kind of bring it back real quick to the Luware demonstration that we had. And my friends in Luware, they're out of London, so they're probably not listening right now. But if you are, you know, this was really impressive to us, right? If you can imagine a virtual reality contact us page, okay, on a company's website, and you pretend that you're walking into a brick and mortar, or you click on, brick and mortar, let's just say on someone's website, you click on brick and mortar, okay, and you go, I'm walking into this virtual reality store, and then I look at the service desk. Maybe it's an auto dealer. Okay. And I look at the service desk and I click on the service desk, and then I see Tom, I see Sally, I see Phil, I see their pictures, and I go, let me talk to Phil. And I click on Phil's little button right there. And all of a sudden Phil's talking to me in his Teams interface on his side. And I'm on the website here in this virtual reality sort of waiting room or virtual reality sort of storefront. It was killer. Like, how cool is that? Right? Exposing those sorts of tools to a website, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Or I said, I think in my announcement for you coming on board is that Azure Communication Services and Power Automate, Teams Phone is just the beginning of business productivity. I woke up that morning and go, it's the beginning of business productivity. If you don't have Teams Phone today, and I can say, because we deploy across all sorts of different customers, Adam, you probably have the wildest customers out there. We can make this, run beautifully in just about any organization, right? And
the potential is huge. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm right there with you, Rick. I mentioned how excited I am to see where things go, and that's where this falls in, right? Azure Communication Services, for most of the lay folks are going to be like, yeah, it's just black box. It's just going to be a black box up in the cloud, and that's great. That's exactly the purpose for it. But for folks like you mentioned, Luware and others, they're going to be building what that next generation of customer experience, employee experience components looks like. With it, I love some of these examples, and telemedicine has been huge, right? Like that. I've got a kid who we end up doing a lot of virtual visits, just because, Brandon, you mentioned the fact that we're both in the Denver area. Nobody wants to drive across Denver in the middle of the day. It's just miserable. And so, those virtual visits are huge. And to be able to have that in a better than a automated FaceTime methodology, where you can now start to bring and take case notes and things like that and make it the ease of use for the doctor who's doing it. It's like, oh, I can just sit here and type case notes. I have everything in my interface. And then from my experience, I'm just like this in a web page. I can see, I can do whatever he needs or she needs done for my son, and off we go. And so whether that's telemedicine, those kinds of things, that one is the one that probably excites me the most out of like the four examples that you have here. There's great other examples though that you can use this towards, and the sheer volume of connectivity models just within ACS. It's not just voice and video, right? You've got SMS, you have email, you have all these other components that you can truly bring in. Yeah, so with this, it just brings everything into one spot that gives you that leverage of data ultimately as an organization.
Brandon, what did you think of that? Absolutely. I mean, it is just, it's just exciting. Like it's, people think it's like it's phone service, man. What are you getting all excited about? This, yeah, it's crazy cool because I look at it and go, it's business productivity. It's business. It's not just phone service now, but we've basically elevated phone service into business productivity, right? Or communications into business productivity, and that's what gets me excited as a business guy. Brandon, what about that Power Automate example? You want to chat about that really quickly? How I kind of flew out of the contact center, checked something in HubSpot, came back and presented something that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of ties back into the example I was given, more high level. And, I think the demo we saw was a sales organization where a caller calls in, to some organization, hits the sales line. And initially the caller is a new caller. So through that automation process, it pops off to the CRM, creates a whole new contact and schedules a follow-up with the caller. And then when that caller calls back in, it knows, it sends it back out to that sales CRM tool, knows who the caller is, knows what the record is, knows what the next step is for the caller, and knows who in the sales organization that call belongs to. And so automatically routes that call onto the appropriate salesperson to get that, instantaneous, real contact established between caller and organization. Really cool. And it happens, in split second. All that
Right.
logic going on, and it's just split second.
Business productivity, right? And what is it really? What's the core of it all? It is really the core of it all is to help organizations build relationships with their employees, with their customers, right? It's really to benefit the organization, right? It's to build a relationship. It's to help them build a relationship with their organization, and any touch that you can have, with your customer. Let's just say the customer experience is everything. I mean, it really is, right? Customer experience is everything. Customer experience can, you lose customers with a terrible customer experience. You can win customers and keep customers for a very long time with a good customer experience. And if that's important to you as an organization, which it is for everyone, I'm just being, facetious there. It's a must, right? These are the tools that you need to implement so that you can start to create a better customer experience for any organization. I didn't even talk about the mobile. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. I was just gonna say the one thing I could see, coming quickly on with ACS and for listeners that don't realize, I come from a big contact center background, where voice sentiment is a big deal. And I can already see, whether it's a Luware or some developer, or even Microsoft directly with their their IVRs and auto attendance and call queues, being able to enhance that user experience, customer experience even further with that sentiment real time, where it's, hey, my customer sounds upset. It's time to elevate this call to the next person, or it's time to prompt the company to offer this caller, or maybe it's even chat, offer them a discount, or offer them, where it's real time feedback coming in as the transaction is going on to better facilitate that customer satisfaction right up front. I mean, how many times have we seen, whether it's you, Adam, or you, Rick, where, customer calls in, they're upset, we're caught off guard, and that call ends, or that interaction ends, and you walk away going, man, I really let that customer down. Now I gotta go sweep up the mess and figure out how I put it back together for the customer. I think what ACS brings, what the technology stack brings, is the ability to bring it all into one solution to really enhance that first touch experience for the customer.
Yeah. Well, while we were in London, and we'll wrap that up. But while we were in London, there was a pretty cool slide, and full credit to Cavell Group for putting this slide together. It's pretty interesting to walk through what organizations are looking for over the next 3 years, and they broke it down by company size, right? What organizations are looking for. Obviously, number one, and this is relevant for businesses out there as much as it is us as professionals in this space, right? To our customers, Adam. Yeah, so we look at this and we go, small companies 0 to 49, they want really good customer service. They just want to call somebody and just have someone help them do it. They're running their business. They're hiring their people to go, whatever it is, work on cars, fix roofs, whatever the business is, right? Law firm, whatever it is. Number two here is make it easier for employees to collaborate. And that's at the heart of what this Microsoft Teams stuff does, right? Makes it easy for organizations to collaborate, and then make it easy for employees to work from anywhere. Well, we know that's a fact. That's not changing anytime soon with the sort of the new work sort of work model, right? Work life model, stuff like that. Anything to say about the small biz or the 50 to 249 employees and above?
It's funny how so much of this is similar. It doesn't matter if you're 0 to 250 plus. I mean, it's all these organizations. It might just not be your priorities may be shifted around slightly, but it's all in your top priority of how do you provide better customer experience, employees to collaborate, or employees to work from anywhere. I mean, those are good themes ultimately for every organization.
Yeah. The 250 and above was interesting. The analytics and the automation, right? The better analytics and automation of a customer's journey.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we just kind of covered, right? In ACS.
Yeah, and as you get larger, I was gonna say, as you get larger, that would be to be expected, right? Because as companies grow, you have to get out of the brute force methodology and you have to get into the process. And the more you automate that process, the easier it is to do that with the team that you have, because hiring is always difficult, especially right now. And there's still a lot of jobs unfilled. So from that standpoint, so yeah, this automation concept of is how are you trying to do that easier and better for your customers?
Yeah. Well, Adam, while we come to this part of the discussion here, hopefully Brandon's got a real quick TCAP demo lined up, and it's just a tour around. I don't expect you to go activate a new customer or domain or anything like that, Brandon. Just showing a tour of the platform. While he does that and prepares for that, Adam, what are some of the coolest deployments you have done that you go, man, that's really like where you're like really proud of your work, right? You look at the solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that I think about are the ones where we've actually been able to not necessarily like, it's not like a whole, oh my gosh, this was revolutionary, but it's we've established a new baseline for them, right? Like I think about a brewing company that I did work with, that I've done work with for a long time, and they were always bound to a single physical location. So going back to that business continuity, and as we brought them towards the cloud, and all of a sudden now they're less worried about the on-prem components, and as they start to look around and go, oh well, now we can do this with the platform. We can automate in our alerts for the floor. So like if something happens, all of a sudden there's a trigger that goes out, and now we've got alerts going out, not just in IM or whatever, but we can automate calls, going back to some of what Brandon was talking about with Power Automate and a few things like that. Some of that stuff is really amazing to me. The other areas that I think about are the ability to handle large numbers of users or devices from a single interface easily.
Yeah.
That ease of administration, and I know from an end user perspective, you're like, I don't care about that, but for the admin who's handling this on a day-to-day basis, and Brandon, this probably leads right into what you're wanting to talk about.
Yeah,
it really helps. I mean, it really makes this platform so much better. And I think one of the things, and hopefully, again, Brandon, I'm probably just queuing you up, so we can have coffee later. But what I was going to say is so many businesses struggle if you think back to like an Avaya or a Cisco platform, they struggle to find the person who can help them manage it. So they either rely on managed services, which there's a lot of great companies that do that, and that's fantastic, or they're looking, or they're training somebody internally to try to do this command line stuff and everything. And I think when you start to look going forward, the ability to build that redundancy by having somebody who knows Microsoft and can come in and start to understand this very, very quickly, very easily. Going back to that point that we had earlier of straightforward, Microsoft does a great job of setting this up for ease of administration, which allows for the business to not have to worry about doing the commodity level work. And now that person can go out and start to understand how can communications benefit the organization at a deeper level, versus just doing these commodity tasks. So Brandon,
Right. Yeah, and I have a question for you, Adam, on kind of just your, day to day as you're interacting with clients. Obviously we're interacting day to day with our clients as we're helping them and guiding them through their journey to teams, specifically through the Operator Connect ecosystem.
Mhm.
What are some of the common questions you run into? I mean, they can be really basic as far as, like I'll give you an example. We find that, we've actually helped migrate several Cisco-based customers over to the Teams ecosystem.
Mhm.
And, as is probably expected, they're looking to do things on parity, right? One for one. Cisco did this, I want Microsoft to do this. And what do you find common questions coming from those kind of customers that we can kind of help put out there for our audience to hear?
I do actually. So one is the confusion between phone system and the PSTN. So always having to go back and describe what is the phone system license versus what's a calling plan versus Operator Connect. We spend a lot of time with customers explaining what that is, because it's kind of like, and I always use this example of, hey, you bought this, name any legacy box that you might have had, right? IP Office or whatever, you bought the box, that's your phone system license. The box doesn't do anything until you connect it out to the network. That's where now you have to make that decision. So there's really two choices that you have to, you make your phone system license choice, but now you have another decision to make, which is how am I bringing that connectivity in, calling plans, Operator Connect, etc. And you can touch on that a little bit more. That's probably one of the first questions that we get, that we spend a lot of time on, honestly. And it's, for us who do it every day, we're like, that's so simple, but
right.
But for customers who don't do it every day, it is super confusing, because it's, you're like, oh, I bought phone system, I got everything. Well, you may or may not.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I've fielded that one, probably because, our sales organization has probably front-ended that piece of the conversation.
Probably.
Whereas once my team is engaged, we're generally fighting. I say fighting. We're dealing with fielding the questions around how to bring, especially in Operator Connect, how to bring the carrier, that trunking, that PSTN into the phone system, and then how that licensing is different from, as you already mentioned, different from the phone system license. And I think those are probably the two big ones outside of just kind of functionality.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, I would add in one other that you can, that, because it's all possible, especially with folks like yourself, is the ability to bring in other technologies like analog, or even the standard SIP phones and stuff like that, like what we're seeing with SIP Gateway. So just those are two other common, more from the technical side, but I'll be honest, like that license question, it's almost always the first question I end up having to talk to, and it's not just at an executive level, but that goes down to the tech level, because let's just be honest, we always joke around, Microsoft licensing needing a PhD and, to understand. And so for folks who aren't doing it day in and day out, it is tough. There's no doubt about that if you're not really doing it every day like we are. And so that's why we're helping try to make those paths straighter.
Yeah, and then, to add to the complexity, like you said, it's trying to explain the difference between, that that resource account license
Mhm.
and when it's needed and the conditions on that, and then like say a common area versus a standard phone license. It's
Mhm.
that probably is the bulk of the upfront of kind of that question outside of day-to-day stuff. The one thing I do want to, and this is more pertinent to people interested in Operator Connect, and the big confusion that seems to hang our clients up is this whole idea of consent, where you've got to go give a carrier consent in Operator Connect. I'm only bringing it up because I think we're about 2 weeks away from, I believe Microsoft is planning on removing the requirement for consent. So it's going to make it a lot easier for customers to pick G12 and us to just activate that service for them without, because we see that all the time where they come in, they register for our service, they don't give consent to Microsoft, and then they're stuck and they want to know why their service isn't working. And so that's another big question that we field is, and hey, we gotta let me get on a screen share and let me show you how to give consent in this Operator Connect platform. So just wanted to call that out, that I'm eager for it. I know it'll make Garcia's life easier and my life easier, because it's a 10-minute conversation we won't have to have after this changes.
Real quick, before you go into that, I just want to address a couple of things, because this was like 10 minutes ago when we talked about managing a platform and with a lot of users. There was a couple of things in there that I wanted to address that I think are exciting to see coming out, and I don't think they've hit GA yet, but I'm excited to see. And it's the ability, and maybe it is GA. It's the ability for other users to now control call queues and auto attendance. And just for the businesses out there, if you're a multi-site organization, let's say you've got 500 locations, 200 locations, whatever, maybe it's just 20 locations, and each one wants their own independently managed IVR or call queue and things like that. Well, before, you had to go to corporate for the person that was managing the team's system to be able to make those changes. Well, now those changes can be delegated out to those separate locations. So for some of our multi-site location customers, this is going to be like, it's game changing. And then you add to the fact that the SIP gateway that you talked about, Adam, earlier, making Cisco phones work, and then Poly and Yealink and some SpectraLinks and things like that, making legacy phones out there work really changes the game, because it makes it easy for someone to go, well, I don't have to spend any CapEx on this new phone system. I just have to roll into Microsoft Teams, pay some licensing, and someone like you guys or G12 to help them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at that and you go, that's pretty cool, because ultimately you're probably going to want to phase out older legacy phones anyway, in place, or and replace it with good room equipment or good headsets, which is not a transition into next week when we're going to have Josh on. It's going to explain some cool
Nice.
equipment and stuff like that. But here's that at Josh for you right here. But so that's pretty exciting to see some of the new equipment that comes out. Brandon, why don't you take us through what you're going to take us through here? That's I just want to say that's pretty exciting, the changes that come about in Microsoft Teams so frequently to allow for solutions for every organization out there.
Yeah, and so I think for what I'm going to show, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, right? The kind of the journey starts in this Teams admin center, and it is the core of the Teams phone system that Adam had mentioned, and a lot of the day-to-day is going to fall under the voice section. But kind of what I want to highlight is kind of from a G12 perspective of how we can even streamline that PSTN connectivity and activation to the Teams phone system. And obviously there's multiple operators. G12 is not the only one. We hope that G12 is the only one for those of you listening. there's the at G12 plug.
How do we know? How do we put a blur? How do we blur out the other carriers? So when you hit the, it's like a backdrop, you just blur out the other ones and just show G12. I'm just kidding. Yep. I'm kidding. I've got lots of friends at other carriers, but I thought that was pretty cool.
That's right. Yep. So what we've done is we've come in and we've created an automation platform that sits out in G12's world that allows our client base and anyone that wants to demo or test this, obviously we can activate this for them, where we can, with your consent, with you come in as an admin, you provide the consent and grant the permissions for us to connect back into your Teams admin center. This then allows us to sync lots of things, but as an example, we're able to go sync your user base and immediately be able to tell whether your users are licensed or not licensed. And I'll tell you, that's, Adam, back to the question about questions that we field. It is amazing how many times we just take a screenshot of this and say, hey, customer, you're not licensed. That's why it's not working, right? So we can see right away it's never going to work until you add a license. And then the ability to, if I've got a user here that's I'm not really sure why there's a do not delete that's not allocated, but if I wanted to add a phone number to a user that's not allocated, I can go add a number. So I'm out of numbers, so I can't add a number. So terrible demo.
The demo gods were not with us.
all my, that's because I get put on the spot, like, hey, give a demo. I'm like, I wasn't prepared for a demo. But if I was to allocate a number to this user, and I could deallocate this number here and you would see it happen. But ultimately what happens is when we activate the number for the customer, we give them access to the inventory, right? But we also push all of this stuff up into the Teams admin center. So really it all becomes visible from a single pane of glass, right? Every number that's listed in our platform over here that is synced and is sitting in a good status, it's sitting in the Teams phone system, with, whether it's a user-based phone number or a voice app being resource account based phone number. So the number can be managed from here. It can be managed from our platform. Really, we provide that flexibility. We have customers that they like using our platform. We have customers, they're big team shops, so they just say, give me my number so I can go do my thing in the Teams ecosystem. So we provide that flexibility to our customers. And with that, if I had time, I would show you how quickly we can activate the service for a customer. But it's minutes. We can have you from
8 minutes
having no connection to G12 to making a phone call in
we do a demo. It's like a brand new Microsoft domain and then activating Microsoft Teams phone on a brand new domain. And we do that like in 10 minutes. I think it's a total of 10 minutes end to end. So it's pretty fun to watch that. And you're like, wow, if I was starting a business, that would be pretty cool.
It's crazy to think about, like, going back to how far we've come. 10 years ago, if you were trying to start a business and you needed a phone system, think about how, like, it's funny. I've been a part of this a few times now in the last 3-4 years, where now it's like, yep, done. Like you said, it's, I started a business. I now have phones. So funny enough, actually, I can. This is one of those things that it's the power of what y'all do in this kind of environment. Obviously, Brandon, you and I live in the Denver area. There, we live in the mountains, and there's always that threat of like fire danger or stuff like that.
Right.
And, even just a little over a year ago, we had the Marshall Fire here in the area, and all those local agencies had to spin up in seconds, literally seconds, all these phone numbers, all these queues, so that people would have emergency contact info of how to get info quickly disseminated out there. In the past, companies had to sit on DIDs. They had to sit on stuff forever, and it was huge costs. Now we have flexibility in that, and you can spin up, if you needed to, you could spin up a new queue here and assign it a number in literally seconds and put some text to speech, and at least have something out there within a minute and a half.
Oh, yeah, very, very.
It's as fast as you can type, right? At the end of the day, that's your limitation is, or at least my limitation is, how fast can I type? And it's been a long time since I was in typing class. So,
Yep. And I really liked last week when we were talking to, I think it was last week, that my jet lag is all over the place right
Tom.
now. But last week when we were talking to Tom, he said something, incredibly simple, but really, profound, I thought, was, the power and flexibility of the Teams phone system is it brings the everyday user like me, sitting in Denver, the ability to buy the same level of, flexibility, power, automation, whatever and compliance that the biggest enterprises in the world can buy. And it's at a consumption-based model. So I can literally spin it up, consume it, spin it back down when I'm done. Just like, your example that you referenced, Adam, is, your cost savings for those kind of scenarios is huge, because you're not getting stuck in a contract. You're not getting stuck with, now you're sitting on all this licensed legacy system stuff that now you're going, what do I do with it? You've got the buying power and the flexibility of on and off when you need it.
And you could do it at Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Doesn't matter that it's outside of business hours. It's like, hey,
Right.
no problem.
Exactly.
Brandon, let's head back to the PowerPoint, because I'm going to throw a couple more slides up, and then I've got a question that I'm going to pose to both of you, and it's going to be one to ponder, and we'll see where it goes. That's just some G12 Operator Connect is because we're awesome. Other than that, let's go over here. We do the SIP trunking, Cloud PBX with Teams, Direct Routing, and Operator Connect. It's just any
And
way to
the
get
shirts,
organizations into Teams. Oh yeah, we got the Path to Teams shirts on. That's right.
There you go.
Right. Uniforms. And we'll let Adam do Comms V Next announcement one more time, because it's really important for people to attend if they're in the Teams ecosystem or wanting to be a Teams organization.
Absolutely. So Lucky 2023 is the special discount code for today. It gets you 75% off. We try to do these every year, like a one-day surprise kind of pop-up sale on these, because we really don't want cost of the ticket to be something that prevents. We already do try to keep that ticket price down. If you look at like what it might cost for a major show in the thousands of dollars, we're well below that. So if you go look at that, 75% off today with Lucky 2023, all one word for that, and hope to see everybody there. I mean, this is, it's funny, Rick, we keep talking about communications, and this is one of those spots where the community and communicating with the community and being in and around it has been such a boon to me over the years of doing this. It gives me encouragement. I get to meet new people and just hear what everybody's doing. And this is one of those spots where you can really find out those neat things that somebody else is solving problems in ways that you may not have heard of.
Yeah, the flexibilities in the platform to deliver all sorts of cool solutions. And that's what just gets me excited. As a business guy, I look at the solution and I go, wow, this is just amazing. Whether it's, chat or video or calling, just a way to communicate with your customers. It just gets really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've got a question for you that I thought of that would be, it's not on here at all, but I just wanted to say, does the ubiquity of Microsoft Teams, right? And you've got all the carriers delivering services into Microsoft Teams via Operator Connect or legacy carriers via Direct Routing, as an example. But the ubiquity of Microsoft Teams, does Microsoft Teams become, and you were around when the bells were together and all that good stuff, and the bells got broken up, and does Teams become the de facto PSTN at that point? And I only ask this because there is a personal Teams, license where you could just go buy Teams for your personal use, right? And it's like, if you can imagine the popularity of WhatsApp, let's just say in Europe as an example, right? There's this common communication platform in WhatsApp, across Europe. We don't have that here in the US. In the US, we're a bit more fragmented in that we use texting a little bit and some apps and stuff like that. But the ubiquity, the capabilities to ubiquitously apply a single platform across businesses and individuals, does that seem to you like at some point in the far off future that Teams could become the de facto PSTN?
I don't know if it becomes the de facto PSTN, but this is a comment that I've made for a long time of at what point does your phone number, because especially now with portability, right? If you think back 10, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't there. Now, do you even look and care what area code somebody's calling you from? Not really. I mean, we have the 303 here, but so many people who call me who live here don't have that. at some point the phone number becomes your identity, or your identity becomes your phone number. It doesn't matter which way, right? But like we're all going to end up with that spot. And I think about like our kids, and they're going to live off of whatever that identity is, whether that's their SIP URI, et cetera. Getting a little technical there, but if you think about, you mentioned about WhatsApp, your phone number really became your identity in that case, in many ways. And so what does that look like ultimately? Whether or not it's Teams is that platform, I'm not sure. I say that because we've just spent a good portion of this time talking about ACS, Azure Communication Services. So I think it becomes a little bit broader than that, honestly, Rick.
Yeah.
And I know we're out of time. My quick opinion of that is I think more importantly, what the ecosystem should be after is, and I'm not even referring to just Microsoft, is it really boils back down to, and it was mentioned at the summit last week in London, is more around the federation of services to allow the freedom of movement between platforms without mandating someone take on the adoption of something, meaning I can live in Teams if I want while you live in WhatsApp, or
Yep.
vice versa.
Yeah. All right, there you go. I was just thinking about it because I remember Bill Gates talking about I don't know, that phone numbers were going to be gone in some far off year, and I was trying to think about what that quote was and look up that quote because it's been a bit. But you don't care about the phone numbers anymore, right? It's and now, particularly if you're in Teams, you're hitting a button, right? You're contacting with a person. Wait till that becomes an inventory of businesses for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're like, okay, let me call, the tire shop. Let me call whoever it is. So those things become pretty interesting. Well, that's the wrap, guys. Thank you very much to Adam Ball for joining us for this hour, this everything Microsoft Teams Phone. This is something that we're all very passionate about. And it's very cool to have people that are like-minded on the show and spread the word to organizations and individuals out there that are interested in understanding more about Microsoft Teams Phone. And next week we're excited to have Josh Blaylock joining us next week, so that's pretty cool. He's going to show us some cool equipment which we haven't had on the show yet, and that's going to be exciting to show some actual gear. So that'd be pretty darn cool. So thank you so much, Adam. We appreciate it. Any parting comments, anyone?
No, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast, and always impressed with the content.
Very good. Happy Friday, everyone. See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks all.